It is a billion degrees here in Cologne, which is where I live. And I'm in my room. I'm recording this video. I have the computer turned on, and it's heating up the room even more. So, I have to apologize for. Yeah. You see, right now you can hear people outside because I have the windows open, and you'll also hear me grab my water bottle and drink from it. Again, I have to apologize, but yeah, it's a necessary evil. I hope you'll forgive me. Please don't unsubscribe. I need to feed my kids. Today, I will talk to you about Final Fantasy VII Remake, as it's called. See, I'm assuming that they're just gonna call this one Remake, and then the next one is called Remake Part 2, or something like that. I'm assuming that's what it is. Because calling the first one Remake Part 1, I mean, that's kind of stupid, right? There's kind of... The reasons I'm doing this are threefold. Number one, for those who follow me on Twitter, I didn't really tweet out my thoughts about anything that happened at E3 because I was fucking depressed and sad and I just didn't feel like tweeting. I'm a lot better now. So yeah, that's the first reason. I feel like I kind of just have a desire to talk about it, and this is the best opportunity to do it. Second reason, I just did that Kingdom Hearts 2 video. So I feel like there's probably a lot of overlap between people who enjoyed that video and people who want to hear my thoughts on, or I should say people who are interested in Final Fantasy VII, and maybe want to hear my thoughts on just how those two things are kind of connected. What the hell was my third reason? Oh yeah, I'm planning another video currently. The script is almost done. On the subject of video game remakes. It's gonna be called Picking a Bone with Video Game Remakes. I'm just gonna reveal that because I know most people are not gonna watch this, probably. So yeah, it's hopefully gonna be out pretty soon. And I think this video that you're watching right now and this upcoming video are gonna go hand in hand pretty well. So, what do I think of the Final Fantasy VII Remake? I think it looks very good, and I'm excited. I do think there is reasonable cause for concern. It's Square, right? It's Square. I was not a big fan of Final Fantasy 15. And it's really funny because everyone thinks I hate Kingdom Hearts 3. Because of the Kingdom Hearts 2 video, where I never even said my opinion on 3. It's just kind of, oh, he really likes 2, so he must hate 3, right? So I'm wondering, maybe I should just leave you hanging a little bit longer. Maybe I will do a video on 3 and explain my thoughts on it. So maybe I should just not say how I feel about it. But yeah, you know, like, however you feel about their games, like, it is clear that there's a history of troubled development and a history of just certain aspects of games being kind of undercooked. Again, it's up to your point of view. But I think most people can at least kind of see where that's coming from, that sentiment. So yeah, I think there is... Yeah, I get just why people are worried from that angle. I get why people maybe just don't want their memories be tampered with at all. I understand that completely. But I think just looking at it, like, for what it is, I think it couldn't look any better. Maybe, I mean, is that hyperbolic? I don't know. But I'm very excited. It looks like it's like the most excited I've been for a Square Enix game in a long time. The thing that struck me the most immediately, with this like whole re-reveal, which didn't happen at E3, right? We had this PlayStation Direct a couple months ago where they re-revealed the game, and then the E3 blowout was just kind of an extension of that. And the thing that struck me is how much it just feels like FF7. The whole color palette, the way the characters talk to each other. Cloud says shit at one point. I mean, he never did that in the original. Tim Rogers made this really awesome tweet that was like, guys, he says hunker down in this footage. I bet he's gonna say let's mosey in the final game. And I agree. An interesting point would be Barrett, for example. A lot of people don't know this, but like in the Japanese version, Barrett's characterization, he was basically just Blade, right? He was just a stoic dude. Whereas in the West, they made him more like Mr. T. And in this version of the remake that we're seeing now, he feels like Western Barrett. But we had, obviously, if you remember, we had this whole 2015 version that they showed at PSX, I think. Yeah, they announced it at E3 that year, and then a couple months later, they had this whole gameplay trailer, and we're like, oh my god, this game might be closer than we all think. Yeah. In that version, he felt more like Japanese Barrett. So I find that very interesting. I mean, obviously the whole time they led with English vocals. Clearly they wanted this game to be a huge deal. But yeah, it feels like they're just generally trying to appeal to your memories of FF7 more than they used to. With that older version, you can definitely tell that mostly two things, right? Number one, you had this very greenish, dark color palette. The whole tone of it was very dark and very serious, very muted. Again, talking about the 2015 version here. And then number two, it felt like there was more of an attempt to tie it in with the rest of the Final Fantasy VII canon, right? With Crisis Core, with Advent Children. And now that seems to be completely gone, right? The color palette reminds me way more of the original game. Cloud is actually buff now. I'm sure you all remember these fucking comparison meme images. I'm gonna be real with y'all. I didn't actually hate the old version. I actually thought the tone that they went for was kind of cool. I thought it was kind of interesting. I think Advent Children and Crisis Core are super goofy. I have not played Dirge of Cerberus. I should do that. I should get around to that. But like, I didn't hate it. I thought it was kind of an angle. It was kind of a take. I thought like it had potential, but at the same time, I'm not mad at all that they now went the other direction, like way more faithful and way more kind of what you think it should look like. I guess on that note, I want to address this whole thing about so like if they're making Final Fantasy VII again to the scale of a modern game, and that means that the result of that is they have to split it up into multiple parts, right? Into multiple games. Could they not have just stuck closer to the original, right? With pre-rendered backgrounds, with fixed camera angles, stuff like that. Turn-based combat, instead of making it like this epic mega game. And I think this video on remakes that I'm planning will hopefully illuminate my perspective on that a little bit more. But I think in this specific case, this argument that, oh, they should have just gone with pre-rendered backgrounds is something I'm very confused about. Where, like, maybe I saw this cool image where someone did a 3D render of Barrett that stuck way closer to the original concept art, and like it looked cool. But then obviously this idea came up, maybe the remake should have looked like that, right? And I don't know, like the entire reason people wanted this remake was because they teased us all with this PS3 tech demo all those years ago, if you remember that. I think they ended up including that in Crisis Core as well as the sort of ending cutscene. It was the part with Cloud riding on the train and then jumping off. They did that, but in PS3 visuals. So like everything was properly scaled. Cloud was just a big, beautiful anime boy. And that's when it all started, right? That's why people said, oh, I want to remake a Final Fantasy VII. It's like, I mean, you really have to ask yourself the question, what motivates you to ask for a remake of a game? Personally, I just gotta say, I don't think there's anything about FF7 that really needs retooling or retouching. If I want to play FF7, I'm just gonna play FF7. I think the character models could use some work, right? And obviously the localization is pretty bad. But those are both things you can fix on PC. I guess that's a little bit besides the point, but yeah. My general point is that I feel like coming out now with a game that sticks super close to the original, pre-rendered backgrounds, turn-based combat, like, do people not think that would be kind of overwhelming? Overwhelming? No, underwhelming. Like, do you now think a lot of people, the mainstream, would be very underwhelmed with that? After having their expectations sort of set to this PS3 tech demo kind of level. Like, I think people would be underwhelmed. And I find it slightly disingenuous to say now. Like, I don't think people would have started saying this whole, just make it pre-rendered backgrounds thing. They wouldn't have started this whole narrative had they not now found out that if we want to do it to this scale, it's going to be necessary to split the game to multiple parts, right? Like, I feel like up to the point where people were, started being confronted with this reality, okay, this is what they're gonna have to do to make this even happen. Up to that point, everyone was hunky-dory with the game being remade in full 3D and shit. But now that we know, about all the compromises they're gonna have to make, now suddenly we're not cool with that anymore. And now everyone's gonna act like, oh, actually, I want to pre-render backgrounds this whole time, right? I don't know, that's what it feels like to me. Yeah, I mean, I just gotta be honest, personally, I don't really see the value in having a one-to-one recreation of FF7 with some tweaks. It's just not something I'm very interested in. I can kinda, like, I don't know. I think the ultimate takeaway is that had they done that, then history would have to make room for 2 FF7 games, right? That are just basically trying to be the same game, but they're not the same game. Like, it's kind of a Resident Evil remake situation, right? I mean, most people would agree that the remake is the better game. I would agree with that as well. But it does still kind of make me sad that there is no room for the original anymore because of that, And if you just make a new game, which is what they're doing now with FF7, then you're kind of sidestepping that issue, I think. And I like that, you know? I'll also say that... oh yeah. I think... So this is like the #1 reason I think I wanted to make this video. Because I missed my window to talk about this news. And it's just been kind of burning on my soul. There was like this whole thing where Kitase, I think, he was like, yeah, actually, we don't know yet how many parts we're gonna need to make this game, right? And then obviously everyone on Twitter just goes, oh, that's so funny, ha ha ha. Like, oh, of course Square Enix don't know how many parts they're gonna need. That's so typical, blah blah blah. Oh, how can you not know that? And like, did Peter Jackson know how many Lord of the Rings movies he was gonna need to adapt the whole book? Probably not, right? I think it's that kind of situation. You have to think that, like, I mean, this is gonna be out early next year. Right now they don't know how people are gonna respond to that yet, to the first part. They don't know what their team size is gonna look like in like a year maybe. They don't know what their tech is gonna look like. Yeah, they don't know what kind of feedback they need to take into account for the upcoming parts. It's just a lot of different moving gears in play here. Like, I don't know. It just seems very... It's like, we're all chalking this up to Square just being Square, right? Typical Square. But no one's really done this kind of thing before, right? And, I have a hard time believing that anyone would have a good idea of how, of what the whole scope of the project looks like. You know, at the stage they're at right now. Or would look like, I should say, yeah. Again, like I said, there's just too many moving parts, right? Like consider even the fact maybe the upcoming games don't even use the same basis. Maybe maybe part 2 is turn-based or something like that. You know, like that could totally be the case. Maybe they just realize it's not feasible. Maybe there's some kind of problem they haven't encountered yet, and that they, like, some kind of problem that you can't think about until you're actually making the game, you know? So this response from Kitase, yes, it sounds goofy, but it's really not when you think about it. It's just realistic and it's just honest. And I'm sorry if I sound like I'm apologizing for Square Enix. Maybe it's the heat getting to me. Yeah. Let's talk about something that's maybe less controversial. I think most people would agree that the combat looks very exciting, and obviously it's a big meme now that Kingdom Hearts 2's lead combat designer is working on this game. Mitsunori Takashi, I think was his name. And again, that's why I was interested in making this video, because I just did the Kingdom Hearts 2 video, right? So the first thing I noticed is that you see Cloud slashing away and just beating the shit out of these dudes, right? He slashes a sword and they're flying all over the fucking place. There's this really good clip where he's like touching a guy with a sword and he's just flying through the air. It looks so visceral, it looks so satisfying. You know, I think 15 actually had pretty good animations and pretty good sort of game feel. Pretty good sound effects, all that. It's just the combat itself, the mechanics, the systems had problems. and then I look at Kingdom Hearts 2, Kingdom Hearts 3, excuse me. I said I was not going to say my opinion on Kingdom Hearts 3, but I guess I'd have to a little bit. The meme about the floaty combat is just true, right? It's just true. I still enjoyed kind of the scale and the spectacle of it. But it really makes you question, man, what happens? Like, I know it's a different team, right? But, it feels like Kingdom Hearts 3, just a lot of the basics it doesn't really nail. And that makes you concerned for something like FF7 Remake. And to be fair, the 2015 version also didn't look that great in the combat department. Obviously, that was still CyberConnect 2. I guess, yeah, one thing I forgot to say, man, like, just graphically, the jump, it's pretty crazy. When the 2015 version was still around, and those first rumors started popping out about, CyberConnect 2's work is not up to snuff, not up to their standards of quality. I was like, what are they talking about? This looks great. And now we're seeing Square's version of the remake, and I get it. I get it. I get why they had to bring it in-house. Not to shit on CyberConnect 2. Asura's Wrath, most legendary game ever made. But yeah. So, just in terms of the polish and the feel, you can already tell FF7 blows KH3 completely out of the water. Like, everything has so much impact, everything's so fast. And that, I mean, obviously that's not the whole combat system, right? But it matters. I think it's very important. I made a tweet that was like, imagine you play as Tifa and the game just turns into God Hand. And that, like, it almost looks like it's gonna be that. Tifa's animations are very good as well. And like Barret has, so yeah, apparently you mash square to attack, and then with Barret I think you can like hold square to do like a big chunky blast. Looks pretty cool. In terms of like hit reactions, yeah, I already talked about this one guy just flying through space, just at the mere sight of Cloud Sword. There is one part, I'll have to look at it again, but like, yeah, there was like an enemy in the air, and I'm assuming the player presses the attack button, and Cloud sort of automatically, kind of like Sora in KH2, jumps after them, for kind of a juggling attack. I don't know if there's gonna be manual launchers in FF7. There is no jump button, so yeah, probably not, right? Like, there probably is no, like, you probably will not have control over whether or not you knock enemies into the air or not. It's just that Cloud will just happen, or whatever character you're playing, they will just happen to follow the enemy to make like aerial combat a little more viable, no matter the character you have, because we're already seeing like bats and shit like that flying around, or like flying turrets, stuff like that. It would be very irritating if Barret was the only character who could hit them, right? So I'm assuming it's just kind of a concession to that, that even Cloud can hit those kinds of enemies. Yeah. I mean, launchers would be cool, but I don't think they're like a must. I guess that's a good transition to my next point. The character switching seems to be a big emphasis. And again, there is an incentive to use Barret, for example, against flying enemies, because it's just easiest to hit him with Barret. But it's not required, right? It's rewarded, but it's not required. That's always my favorite kind. My favorite way to design any game, basically. you can definitely very clearly tell that the characters are obviously tiered, right? That Barrett is pretty weak, but he has the best range. Tifa's range is super short, but she's very fast and strong, and Cloud is somewhere in the middle. I mean, in the first game, we're gonna get Aerith as well. I doubt we're gonna play as Red 13, right? For that small portion of game, like that he would be in. Maybe they're gonna introduce him earlier. But like, I mean, yeah, I'm sort of thinking. I mean, yeah, it probably just makes more sense to save him for the next game. I don't know. One thing I heard that was not really emphasized in the footage that Square showed, but like, people just talked about it, is that there's some Xenoblade-esque kind of elements where one character can set up an enemy for an attack with another character, and that seems like a good route to go. The general impression I get with this game is that they try to bring out a similar feeling to the original FF7, but with action game mechanics. I don't think that the characters individually are gonna have as much depth as, for example, Sora in Kingdom Hearts 2, because that would be a lot, right? I do think the depth is gonna come from how the characters play off of each other, and having to use all of them in succession and in sequence. I think that's the perfect way to go with this game. Because yeah, if it were just you play as Cloud and then the rest is AI, I mean, that would be very disappointing, right? That's not really what you would want. So yeah, I find it interesting that they're trying to find ways to make a multi-character setup in an action game work. Basically, FF7 Remake is the sequel to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutants in Manhattan. If that doesn't fill you with confidence, then I don't know. I'm so fucking sweaty. God. God. Yeah. The thing I kept hearing is like Cloud or Barrett or whoever can topple one enemy, and then the other character can just do some shit to him. Seems pretty cool. I also like the way they're doing the ATB system, where attacking fills your ATB gauge, and then you get to use one of your big chunky moves. And then MP, I think, is specifically reserved for magic. I'll have to dip back in to see how exactly it works, but yeah. The thing I tried to emphasize the most strongly with my Kingdom Hearts 2 video was the synergy between all the elements, like how one thing sets up another thing, and everything is kind of connected, and you can't do one thing without thinking of the other thing. And the way the combat is designed inherently makes it very active, right? You always have incentives to just keep fighting, keep being on the offensive, and FF7 seems to achieve the same thing but with different methods, right? It doesn't seem like there's a recharge system like in 2, where it's like, oh, okay, you have these distinct phases and pace shifts in the combat, where it's like, okay, now you go on the offensive, and now you have to be a little bit more cautiously. With FF7, I get more the impression it's like you want to just consistently dish out damage, and that there's always some kind of reward for putting yourself in harm's way and taking risks. And then once you fill up your gauge, that gives you kind of a moment of rest, or it can lead to something big after that. I find that very interesting, and like, yeah, the origin of this game obviously is a turn-based game, and the combat seems suitably kind of slower paced and a little bit more methodical. And I really like that. That's a really interesting direction for this kind of action combat system. And like, man, yeah, so they're trying to please the turn-based audience, with this whole, fucking slow motion thing, where you have a little command menu and then you can navigate it, while time is frozen. And like, I think that's probably the best way to do it, right? That's, like a way of appealing to a wider group of players without, without ruining the combat. Like, you know, without doing the FF15 thing where it's like, oh, I just want you to hold one button to dodge everything, right? And I think it's also, I mean, I complain about the command menu in Kingdom Hearts 2, and now in Kingdom Hearts 2, I would not want a pause to select my commands. I don't think that fits the pace of that game. But with FF7, like, it naturally looks like a way slower game, and like a way more methodical action game. And in that kind of scenario, I could actually see myself using this kind of pause function to select commands that don't fit on the shortcut menu, because the shortcut thing from KH2 is back, so you can just use that. But yeah, I'm assuming it's also still limited to 4 moves per character. And when that's the case, then yeah, you're just gonna have to use the menu at some point, which is fine, right? But yeah, obviously it's not turn-based, right? If you really want that turn-based combat, you're just gonna have to play the original. That's the thing. Like, if you love pre-rendered backgrounds, if you love turn-based combat that much, which I get that, like, I don't even know why you're looking for this, you know? That's really my stance. I can get why this game potentially tarnishing the reputation of the original, why that would concern you, regardless of whether or not you want to play it. I get that. But like, if it's just about, oh, like, I want to play it, but I prefer turn-based combat, that's like, just don't play it. Just don't fucking play it then. Do you have anything else to say? Yeah, I guess there's one other thing I remembered about the whole splitting into parts. I always see people like ask, oh, how are they gonna handle this? How are they gonna handle that? That's not gonna make sense with the pacing of the game, right? Blah 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 blah. They're changing it so fundamentally that it's just gonna be weird once you split it up. And it's like, my guy, do you not think that they're thinking about that? Do you not think that they're gonna come up with some kind of solution, right? Like, the funniest point that I heard was like, oh, how are they gonna do the world map? Is Cloud just gonna walk for 3 hours between the different cities? Because, oh, they want to do it in a proper scale. It's like, no, obviously not. They're gonna come up with something. And like, you can already, like, it's not even that hard to imagine what they would come up with. In this first part, they're pretty heavily emphasizing the motorcycle, which in the original only appeared at the very end. Whereas in the remake, there seems to be a little bit more going on with the motorcycle. I'm assuming maybe you can just use the motorcycle in the open world in part 2. You know? Like, that'd be the perfect way to handle it, I think. To make the distances between the cities feel realistic without, making the travel time way too long. So yeah, it's just stuff like that. Or like, when I hear people say, "Oh yeah, you're turning a 3-act story into 3 separate stories, and that doesn't work," blah blah. You just don't know that yet. It's the kind of thing where it's really pointless to speculate about it. Yeah. Like, I don't want to talk shit, right? But I just know, people are gonna play this and all of those concerns are just gonna melt away immediately. I can just tell, right? That's, like, all of that is gonna be a non-issue. Because I think in general we need to give developers more credit, right? It's a lot to assume that they don't know better, you know, and they're just throwing shit at the wall. Again, even with Square Enix, right? Even with Square Enix. Yeah, I guess that's the note I'm leaving this video on. If you like what you heard, you can either check out my other videos. I mean, this is going up publicly, so there's a good chance that you're gonna see this and you have not seen any of my other videos. I have a Patreon now. This is a test video. Maybe I should have said that at the start, but yeah, this is the kind of content you're gonna be seeing on the Patreon, and this is sort of a public test. You can just watch it for free. If you like it, there's gonna be more of that sort of thing. You know, with the Patreon subscription, $3 gets you 2 extra videos of this style every month. Yeah. So yeah, right now there should be one other public test video as well that you can watch for free, and then also there's 2 videos on the Patreon right now that you can see once you're subscribed. Yeah. Share this with your friends if you want, if you feel like it. Don't share the Patreon exclusive videos with your friends. Your support helps me a lot, means a lot to me. I love you. Wander Magenta forever. Bye bye. Wander Magenta, Final Fantasy VII, remake forever.